Hi everyone, welcome to Passitpro's third session of Tips for the Test. If you haven't been able or weren't able to join us in the two previous sessions, you can just scroll down on your Facebook page and you'll be able to see those videos. The first one was on, what do you do when you get it down to two good answers and you don't have a way to choose? And the next one after that, which was kind of related, was how to find or identify the concept, the issue, the social work principle or ethic that question is illustrating. Today, we're going to talk about another problem. How in the world can anybody memorize all of the facts and materials and concepts and everything that's on the test? For most people, it very easily seems overwhelming. I remember that when I was preparing for the test, this was about 10 years ago, I went and bought some books that were recommended, and they were two large books, and they were so heavy, I mean, it was really hard to even carry them around. And as I went through them, the amount of information and explanation of everything in the world that was connected to social work was really overpowering and daunting. And I thought, my goodness, I wouldn't know where to start with this. Fortunately for me, I had had many, many years of social work direct experience, and that really helped me figure out kind of what was important and what maybe wasn't so important. But not all of you have that. Many of you take the test very shortly after getting your degree. So here are some things that I'd like to teach you, share with you, that can help make what seems like an impossible task really maybe not so bad. The first thing is, okay, well, what should you study anyhow? And here's what you should remember. This test, and this includes tests for the master's level, test for the LMSW, LCSW. These tests, both the clinical, the master's, and the advanced generalist, will only include really, really basic stuff. Now, yes, you need to not just memorize facts that you don't understand. You need to have a basic understanding, but you really don't need to go and dig deep. I've always said I could teach a 3-minute or maybe 5-minute course on all the topics that are potentially going to be on the test. I could not teach a semester-long course, which goes into concepts, obviously much more deeply. Now, if you don't already know, ASWB, they're the people who write the test. They have a website. If you go to aswb.org and you type in KSAs, that stands for Knowledge, Skills, and Abilities, that will give you a detailed outline of the topics that are potentially on the test you're going to take. Now, if you look at those topics, each one of them probably could have a textbook written about it. So don't get scared, because all you have to know are, again, the very, very basic things. The test does not go deep. It goes very wide. And in a way, there's nothing really complicated or made to be very difficult. They just want to know if you know the basic stuff. So that's one thing that I hope will be of use to you. Okay, so how do you go about learning the basics? Well, one of the things, I forgot to mention, I'm the creator of Passitpro, and you can see what our course offers on passitpro.com. But one of the things is that we at Passitpro have created an exam, not an exam, an online license course that has made some of the hard decisions for you. We have identified what the essential content is. And so there are basically one major part of the test are 5 one-hour videos. That's text on PowerPoint slides plus voice narration, namely me explaining the basic important stuff that you must know. Now, in some ways, it might have been easier for me to make a 20 or 30-hour course, but that's totally overwhelming. So I did, again, the work for you and chose the content at a reasonable amount that works for you. And we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students who have taken it, and it's worked perfectly. It's a very excellent match for what's on the test. I'm basing this on the feedback that I get all the time from our students. Okay, so once you've gone over the material, whether you do it on Passitpro or on another source, how do you then learn it all? And it brings up the very basic questions about memory. How do we learn things? So for example, many of you who may cook, you may have a recipe, maybe a favorite family recipe that you like to make. For the first few times that you made it, you were probably sitting there with your cookbook or written outline of the recipe, remembering if it's a teaspoon or a tablespoon or what goes in before what. But if you make that special cake or dish, whatever it is, over and over and over again, there's some number, and I don't know, everybody has a different number, but by the time you make that dish 6 times, 7 times, I don't know what your number is and how often you have to do that, but at some point, next time you make that cake, you're not going to have to open the cookbook. You're going to know exactly how many cups of flour and how much sugar and whatever goes in it, and you can just do it. Your brain, through repetition, learns. There are probably poems and songs that you were taught when you were kids in elementary school that you still know. Somehow our brain remembers music and things that we've said out loud, like poetry, much more than just sort of reading. But there are some clues there too. So what I suggest is that you go through the course, go through it once, maybe go through it twice, pick out the things that you don't automatically already know and figure out which ones that you need to learn. Listen to the explanations and then make some flashcards with the name of the concept on one side that you want to learn. But then don't write 3 paragraphs on the other side. What you want to do is find 3, maybe 4 keywords that are going to be triggers that will help you distinguish which defense mechanism is it, which diagnosis is it. So you want to select, like for example with diagnoses, you want to select things that will help you rule in and rule out. For example, one of the diagnoses with the SCHIZ words, duration is always, almost always very helpful in remembering the diagnoses because they like to ask questions that have duration issues in the diagnosis. Learning medications, learning their side effects, learning their, what they're used for specifically. Put down the specific indicators. So now that you've got a bunch of flashcards with that information, what's the best, strongest way to get it into your memory? Yes, repetition is part of it, but don't just leave it to your eyes to quietly, and just scan the information. I'd like you to sort of be noisy, if you can imagine such a thing, because saying it out loud is much more powerful to park it in your memory, to etch it in your memory, than just looking at it. For some people, writing it down. Why did the teacher have you write, "I will not do whatever," thing you did in grade school on the blackboard 500 times? The hope was that you would remember that. So don't just look at it, say it out loud, write it down. But then what's also very important is that you have to have some way to verify, to absolutely be clear, do you know this fact or not? Because once you do, then you can put that specific flashcard aside in the I think I got it pile. Okay, I'm just going to take a minute and take a drink, excuse me. So how do you know when you know it? I have a lot of people who've said to me, you know, I've been studying for a year. I've been studying for months and months. And then I work with students as part of the course on a Skype session, and I test them on practice questions. And they go, oh, wait a minute, I know that, I think I know that, just a minute, I think that's familiar. But they don't have it really where they're able to grab it immediately, because as you know, on that test, you don't have a lot of extra time to sit back and try to recall something. You've got to have it boom, 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 boom. And that's the goal to get to have it immediately available. And that's where repetition comes in. You have to get to the point where, just like that recipe, where you know it and there's just no problem that's going to come up. So you need to test yourself to see that it's immediately available. And the key to doing that is repetition, repetition, repetition. Because, you know, there are some things that if you just do it over and over again, but do it in small groups. Pick out 3 facts that you want to learn today. Go over and over and over it as many times. Say it out loud, write it. Then you may have to do it again the next day. But there's some number of days after which, if somebody taps you on the shoulders and asks you for all that information, it's just, you've got it. You know that you have it. You don't have to sort of dig deep. The second part of that is that you have to keep it alive and keep it fresh. Because if you don't bake that cake for another year till the next birthday, you're not going to remember it. That's too long. So it has to stay live. And the way you do that is then what you're going to study today, before you begin, you go back to what you studied yesterday and you briefly make sure you have it. And you go back to the day before, so you bring forward with you everything that you studied before to keep it alive and fresh. What that also means is that you shouldn't study ideally for months and months and months, because it's very hard to keep things fresh and clear over weeks and weeks and weeks. So you want to identify a period of time, I'd say 3 weeks to 5 weeks sort of max. We offer, in Passitpro, you get the course for 3 months, but I really hope that people will prepare in a shorter time, because 12 weeks is a very long time. And you should do preparation every day, but an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. You don't want to study for 8 hours, say only on the weekend, I'm going to hit the books. That's not good for your brain. Your brain is sitting there all week long waiting for you to keep going over what you've learned so that you keep it and it stays alive. So these are just some different ways to learn and to keep things, you know, fresh in your mind. I hope that, you know, this will be helpful to you. Try some of it out. Try it, you know, so make it a little experiment to see, again, how well it works for you. So repetition is your friend. Writing it down, saying it out loud, that will work for you. So if you find this helpful, that would be, obviously, that's what I'm here to do. If you have any questions, please, you know, leave a message. You can do it on Facebook or on the website if you like. And if you like us on Facebook. What that means is that you will automatically get notice of when the next tip session will be. We're doing it every Monday, briefly, about 15 minutes on a different topic, every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have any topics that you would like to bring up or see if I can be of help with, please let me know that too. That would be, you know, I'll certainly take a look at that. Next week, our topic is going to be read the question carefully. Now that sounds like, well, of course, that's a silly thing to even be talking about. Everybody knows you read the question carefully. In my observation, again, of working with hundreds of students, people don't do that for a couple of reasons. One, that you're on the test, you've got the time pressure. But if anyone has any anxiety or test anxiety, it's really pushes them sometimes to go through the question really fast or to focus so much on the question and they're not able to choose an answer because they just, anyway, they just can't do it. So reading the question carefully is probably the most important, one of the most important things you can do on the test. Everybody thinks they do it, and I will show you some special tricks and ways of how to read it carefully so that that question becomes your friend. What a strange thing, right? Instead of your enemy. Okay, so I hope this has been useful. Leave me any comments or questions on Facebook and follow us on Facebook and have a good rest of the week.